Welcome to part 2 of my series detailing the key components of the Abu Dhabi FIX. This part will deal with the Sky Sports F1 narrative. So, let us be clear from the outset. You, the global audience, was lied to by Martin Brundle and David Croft as this event took place. Those Sky Sports F1 commentators lied to you about the rules of the sport and about the probability of events happening in order to condition you to believe that it was going to be possible to see a racing end to this event. That is a categoric fact. That is not something that's up for debate, and it will be evidenced in this video. Firstly, you were lied to straight away as soon as Latifi crashed, because straight away you were told that we were likely to see at least one racing lap, maybe a couple. That's what was told right from the outset. The data, the statistics do not in any way back that up. During Michael Massey's tenure as race director or apprentice race director, the safety car was deployed in excess of 60 times. Of those times, some of the cars within the field had been lapped on 16 occasions, and on those 16 occasions they had to carry out the unlapping procedure in order for racing to resume. In all of those times, the average number of laps that elapsed before racing could resume was 5.5 laps lost. At this point in time, there are only 5.25 laps remaining, and yet Martin Brundle and David Croft promote the idea that we are going to see racing, when the data in no way backs that up. Imagine you are watching a football match. You watch the whole of that 90 minutes. There are no stoppages of any note. And just before the 90th minute comes to a close and you see the fourth official hold up the board, showing the whole crowd and the audience how many minutes of stoppage time are going to be added on. If the commentator says, well, there's bound to be 10 minutes, why would they say that? When the evidence did not back it up, when the data would suggest there is no reason for that, why would they say that? So here is the evidence.
That will be a safety car, because marshals are going to need to recover that Williams and to work on it, and this now completely changes the context of this race if they can clear the Williams in time and we can have a couple of laps racing to the checkered flag.
There's bound to be a couple, and of course that's where...
If we can have a couple of laps to the racing to the checkered flag, there's bound to be a couple. The data says completely otherwise. And straight away they then sow the seeds of this notion of tyres.
Max Verstappen's much fresher tyres will fire up.
At that stage, Max had not even pitted for fresh, soft tyres. With all of these things, everything is reinforced either twice, 3 or 4 times. So this is the second time that Brundle conditions people to believe it.
There will be, I'm pretty sure, on lap 52, obviously because of the slow pace with 5 to go, that they'll probably have a lap or two, as long as they get if they get a vehicle on there and get that out of the way.
So what we see is the lie is always embellished to make it sound feasible. And here's the third time.
I can't box.
Negative.
Right, so if there is a restart, Verstappen now has fresh, soft tyres. Lewis has heavily used hard compound tyres. They will let any lap runners through on the safety car restart.
What they will do, they will condition you to believe something and then they will say something else to cast doubt. And so they will claim what they are constantly making you unsure, making you question your own understanding, make you constantly search for answers in terms of second guess what may or may not take place, and they are purposefully suggesting the possibilities this way. So they've said 3 times that they're expecting for the race to resume, but then they do say this.
Wow. So look, we're on lap 54 of 58 here. They've got to clear that debris away, and the fire extinguishers have obviously gone off because the brakes, I'm sure, were getting very, very hot. But they've also got to let the lapped cars unlap themselves. Just at the back of my mind, I wonder if we're going to get any racing laps in this race. Wait and see. This is what happened.
So they tell you what the procedure's got to happen, but they're also saying that procedure might mean that we're not going to get any racing laps. So is that not setting it up for this hybrid solution that we then saw? So Crofty's statement is then reinforced by Brundle.
Will we get any more racing laps or not? What jeopardy at the end of this Grand Prix.
What jeopardy, everybody. Keep you on the edge of your seat. Will we, won't we? What drama.
This World Championship, will there be any more racing laps? If there are, then Verstappen has got the tyres to really do something with them. Will they let the lap runners through?
That question is an entire lie. This is on lap 55 of Abu Dhabi. Lap 55. He's asking, will they let the lapped runners through? You categorically cannot resume racing in a Formula One Grand Prix after a safety car incident with lapped cars left in place. I've done numerous videos detailing exactly why that is, and the simple scenario is Lando Norris here, who is tucked up behind Lewis Hamilton. He previously was challenging Pierre Gasly, that's now all the way over here. By the time this safety car situation sorts itself out, Gasly will be at the back of this pack and Norris will be almost an entire lap behind Gasly, when previously Norris was closer to Gasly than Verstappen was to Hamilton. You cannot allow a safety incident and dealing with that safety incident to skew the chances of each of the competitors in such a way. Hence, that is the purpose of releasing the lapped cars. That is the purpose of giving them that mandatory safety car lap with which to try and catch the back of the pack and restore sporting fairness to every single competitor. Every single competitor within this safety car snake is affected by the positions of each of the vehicles in that safety car snake. I've detailed that in another video. Every single one of their chances is skewed somewhat by what their current positions are. You categorically cannot resume racing like this. This is the first time Brundle suggests this. It's not the first time he's ever said it though. He began lying and he began gaslighting fans back at the 2019 Spanish Grand Prix. The first time that I believe where lapped cars were in situ after Charlie Whiting had passed away. It very much seems that the desire to manipulate the use of the safety car to set up exciting finishes within races was something that this sport was considering all the way back then. Crofty now acts as the voice of balance. There are 8 lapped cars. It is quite simple to see on screen right now. The car behind Lewis Hamilton is Lando Norris. He is in 8th position. So every car that is behind Norris has been lapped, which means you can read the list down the right hand side of the screen. Norris, Alonso, Ocon, Leclerc, Vettel. There's 5. Ricciardo, Stroll, Mick Schumacher. They are the 8 cars who have been lapped. All Crofty does is focus on 5.
Well, they always do let the lap runners through, and in between Hamilton and Verstappen, Norris, Alonso, Ocon, Leclerc and Vettel.
Yes, but if they do that, it extends the safety car period.
But
it doesn't extend the safety car period. The safety car period lasts as long as it lasts as long as it takes to fulfill the requirement of unlapping the cars and giving them at least one mandatory safety car lap. That's how long it takes. It doesn't prolong it. Prolonging it would be giving those released competitors a further lap with which to catch the back of the pack if they've not managed after the one mandatory lap. That is something that Massey has done on 4 other separate occasions where those released cars had not caught the back of the pack after that one mandatory lap. And then this is a further lie by Crofty.
But that's what they always do, take the lap runners out of the way so they're not interfering in play.
The purpose of releasing the lapped cars is nothing to do with them not interfering in play. It is solely for sporting fairness to every competitor in that race in accordance with the FIA International Sporting Code. They conveniently forget that the lapped cars of Daniel Ricciardo and Lance Stroll were left in between position 2 and position 3. So this notion of getting them out of the way so they're not interfering in play didn't apply to that situation, did it? It didn't apply to the fact that Mick Schumacher was left in between Valtteri Bottas and Yuki Tsunoda. It didn't apply to that situation. Was he not interfering in play? But that is how it is presented by Sky Sports. I've shown you a video of the 2019 Brazilian Grand Prix where Pierre Gasly had been lapped during that race. They did a safety car procedure. He was allowed to unlap. Pierre Gasly finished second in that race. Those 2 people commentated on that race. They know exactly the purpose of that rule. They've lived it. Now, once again, the Sky Sports presenters present a possibility of not resuming racing if it's not possible. But this is how he says it.
And that was the big key here. Mercedes, for the second time, keeping Lewis Hamilton out, whilst Max Verstappen pitted. Red Bull had nothing to lose. Hamilton potentially losing track position, and in this case, if we don't go racing again because you can't overtake under the safety car, he would have lost the World Championship.
If we don't go racing again because they can't sort the incident out in time effectively, Lewis Hamilton would have lost the World Championship. That's how he words that. When the simplicity of it is, if we cannot restart this race again, Lewis Hamilton will be world champion. They didn't pit Lewis Hamilton. They didn't lose track position. They kept him out on track in the lead of the race, in the knowledge that it was highly unlikely that it was ever going to be possible to resume racing. But Sky Sports have suggested that had they have done so, he'd have lost the World Championship. Rather a strange, spun way of stating something that's quite simple. And now Brundle keeps everybody on the edge of their seat, keeps everybody guessing.
Is there a vehicle pulling the Williams out of the way or not yet?
So this is the second time that Brundle asked the same question.
And but will they let the lap runners through? I don't think it's absolutely mandatory, but that's normally on a wet day that they don't.
You have to let the lap runners through. The notion of it being a wet day is complete lies. It is a red herring. It has nothing to do with the situation whatsoever.
And if so, how long will they wait for those lap cars to get out of the way? If they wait for them to catch the pack up, which they don't have to do, no, then I don't think we'll get a racing lap. If they...
How long will they wait? Well, the minimum requirement is after the lap on which they are released, that safety car must stay out for a mandatory lap. That is the minimum period. That is known by Sky Sports F1. They have commentated on all of those events where they have seen that take place. So asking the question, how long will they wait, is, again, keeping people on the edge of their seat, keeping people guessing.
Let them through, we could get one racing lap.
If they let them through, we could get one racing lap. We are now on lap 56 of the race. They have to be let through on this lap in order for that to happen, because then lap 57 can be the mandatory safety car lap, meaning lap 58 can be that valid racing lap. They do not point out the fact that the lapped cars must be released on this lap if that was to happen. And here's confirmation of that.
3 laps to go. Nicholas Latifi.
Yeah, box.
And lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake.
It's not mandatory in the regulations, which...
So, this announcement that lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake, it's announced because the track isn't safe. Marshals are still on track, clearing up debris at turn 14, as is evidenced from the in-car footage from Nicholas Latifi's car, as is evidenced as we go by the incident on this lap. You will see the marshals at turn 14 exiting the track. That is the reason why at this stage you cannot release the lapped cars. Rather than state that to the world, they continue with this narrative of it's not mandatory. Now, if you want to go racing, it is mandatory. If it is not safe to release the lapped cars, it is not safe to go racing. In order to go racing, it has to be safe enough to release the lapped cars. You have to release the lapped cars. You have to give them that mandatory safety car lap with which to try and catch the back of the pack. And once you've done so, then you can restart racing. They are the only conditions which enable you to resume racing. Them and only them. Everything else is a lie.
Which leaves Verstappen with a lot of work to do then.
So
it doesn't leave Verstappen with a lot of work to do then. It means this is on course to be a safety car finish, because unless these lapped cars can be released by somewhere in the region of turn 9, giving the last one, Mick Schumacher, the chance of making it through all of those cars ahead of him and to get past Lewis Hamilton and the safety car before the start-finish line. That is the only way that lap 57 can be that mandatory safety car lap, and the only way that there can be a racing end to this event. The only way it can be a racing end. Nothing to do with it leaving Verstappen with a lot of work to do. So once again, these statements always get reinforced by the other commentator. This is Crofty affirming what Brundle has said. It's all lies.
As it stands at the moment, assuming that Hamilton and Bottas finish this race. The Drivers' Championship, though, is very much up for grabs. The lapped cars won't be allowed to overtake, which means that there are plenty of cars in between Hamilton and Verstappen for Verstappen to fight his way through.
That is a complete lie. That is something that the global watching audience has been conditioned to believe was a possibility. It categorically is not even a possibility, yet it's something that Brundle has already suggested on numerous occasions, and Crofty is affirming it. It is not in any way within the rules of the sport for that to happen.
Norris, Alonso, and also Ocon and Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel.
None of which are for position, of course.
No.
They're obliged to get out of the way, but Lewis will be long down the road.
So that there is the embellishment of the lie. They are adding to the lie by painting a picture. Oh, but they'll all be obliged to get out of the way, and in which time Lewis will have extended his lead. None of that situation is even valid. And here comes the fake validation that is not in any way in accordance with the rules of the sport from Crofty.
That I suppose is the compromise that race control have made here by giving the best possible chance for racing to the finish rather than finishing behind the safety car. They've decided the lap cars will stay where they are.
So, pick any sport. You know the rules of that sport. You watch the sport. As you are watching that sport, if the referee is clearly not applying those rules, did you hear the commentators say, oh, I suppose that this is the best compromise that the referee is making here? In order to allow a goal to be scored, he is changing the rules to give one team the chance of doing so. Or are you going to be hearing the commentators call out the blatant wrongdoing that's not in accordance with the rules? That is what authentic commentary does. They tell the watching world what is going on, and if something is going on that isn't right, they are calling out what is right, what is within the rules of the sport. However, Sky Sports F1 instead are saying, oh, I see that this is the compromise that the race director is making. They are explaining the fix before it even happens. And after the Red Bull interjected message to make it look like Red Bull are being hard done by, then Crofty presents this. Again, keeping people guessing, keeping people on the edge of their seats. All of it is fake.
Look, I'll try and look at this objectively. We should get one lap of racing here. If we allowed the lap cars to overtake, we'd have no laps of racing to the checkered flag. So what do Red Bull want? And Max Verstappen and...
If we allowed the cars to overtake, we'd have no laps of racing. Exactly. You cannot resume racing without those cars being released and giving them the mandatory lap. It's a safety car finish. That is the state of play. That is the only possible outcome at this point. We know, as proven in part 1, there are marshals departing the track right now. This is the earliest that the order for those lapped cars to be released can be given. They are not going to pass Lewis Hamilton and the safety car prior to being on lap 57, which means lap 58 is a safety car lap, which means it is a safety car finish. And Crofty is still saying this, which is a total lie. What he is doing is building up the impression that it is still possible to see a racing end to this race, and it is categorically not possible. This is a narrative. Sky Sports F1 are in. They are playing their part that they are contracted to do. They knew what was going to happen. They are playing their part to condition the minds of all of the viewers.
And Giampiero Lambiase is race engineer. Do they want the chance, or do they want to finish behind the safety car with no overtaking? Because I think that is the decision that has come from race control. And personally, this is the decision that gives them the best chance if they want it.
Yeah.
That is the decision that's come from race control. So far, all we've heard, supposedly from race control, is the notion that lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake at a point in time where it's not safe for lapped cars to be released. There is no notion that there is likely to be any racing. We know now, even if they are released now on this lap 58 will be a safety car lap. Why are Brundle and Crofty presenting that we are still likely to see racing?
I mean, the regulation, as I said, they may allow the lap cars through. It's not mandatory, as I pointed out, but as you point out, Crofty, there'd be no racing laps if they let the lap cars through.
So he lied about it not being mandatory, which it absolutely is.
Because I think the safety car will come in at the end of this lap, and there will be one racing lap.
That is a suggestion which is in no way in accordance with the rules of the sport. We are now on lap 57. The lapped cars have not been released yet. If they're released on this lap, lap 58 has to be a safety car lap. There are no two ways about it, and yet Brundle is saying that he believes that the safety car will come in at the end of this lap, and there will be one racing lap. And at this moment in time, they're saying that racing lap will be with those lapped cars in between Hamilton and Verstappen, which is not even a possibility.
They'll all get blue flags, I would imagine.
Again, embellishing the lie. And then we see the narrative being interjected with F1 TV and the radio message.
Christian and Michael.
Yes, go ahead, Christian.
Yeah, why aren't we getting these lap cars out of the way?
Just give me, well, because Christian, just give me a second. Okay, my big one is to get this incident clear.
You only need one racing lap.
And once again, Brundle affirms this notion of the cars in between Lewis and Max getting blue flagged.
Yeah, I mean, all of the cars in front of Max will get blue flags and are duty bound to get out of the way, but they're all in a reasonable fight themselves, aren't they?
Well, so here we go. Normally, you know, you'd see the...
So, what we're going to get again is the embellishment of a fake scenario.
Race leader backing up the pack a little bit when the safety car goes. I would imagine on this occasion, if we do get a lap, Martin, Hamilton will want to be disappearing off into the distance as fast as he can.
Yeah, I don't see any way Verstappen can...
It keeps the fans guessing. It gaslights them. It gets them to question their own reality of what is normal. It's contrived. It's calculated.
Can do anything with that, but indeed, is the safety car coming in this lap? We think it should do, could do.
You've told us at the start of the lap that you expect it to. Now you're thinking it could do, should do. Listen to what he also says.
Is there any more debris to clear up?
We think it should do, could do, and then asks, is there any more debris to clear up? What is he doing? He's throwing in something there, another variable, to once again keep the audience guessing, keep them on the edge of their seat, wondering what's going to happen. Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? Is it possible? Is it not? And then we get this.
But we're halfway round already.
Race control are now saying lapped cars to overtake the safety car. So Norris and Alonso and Ocon and Leclerc and Vettel to
and it's
overtake
ending.
it.
And it's ending. Wow.
Mike.
There you go. The fake surprise after conditioning everybody to believe that it was all going to take place anyway. They've kept you guessing. They kept suggesting different scenarios, none of which were valid. They kept reinforcing them. They kept getting you to question the options. And then, when you finally see this jeopardy, this final lap shootout is enabled. That was the role that Sky Sports F1 were contracted to play at that event. They were further contracted to play a role in the media conditioning, which will be addressed in video 5, and the further media conditioning that will be addressed in video 7. Look out for the other 6 videos to come detailing all of the elements of the Abu Dhabi FIX.